Bitcoin on the weekly chart breaking a multi-month trend line on the RSI, this momentum oscillator. On the price chart, a lower high trend line being tested, slightly broken right now, but in the middle of key resistance. And altcoins, liquidity, global liquidity. If altcoins and crypto markets follow this path, we could be days away from a breakout. There's no way. Is there? That is kind of my question as I kind of go through all of this analysis. Hit the subscribe, hit the like on the way in. I just want to present the data, and I do want to just explore that question. Is this really going to happen? And why I think it's just a very good idea to be prepared if it doesn't, especially in the immediate short term. So let's go through this data, and I want to start with Bitcoin, and then I want to end up on those altcoin charts. I'm taking M2 money supply going back to like 2023, and on the altcoin charts, it is suggesting that we are potentially days away, but that doesn't mean anything. We have to prepare for it all. So I want to start on the weekly. This is the RSI, and there are other analysts that are obviously covering this because it's a big deal. This RSI lower high trend that Bitcoin has been in on the momentum oscillator here on the weekly is a very big deal because historically, when we see Bitcoin kind of breaking above a trend like that, it leads to massive breakout. And this chart, if I just zoom out, you can see these trend lines going back to like 2018. And Bitcoin has just done very well every time it breaks out to the upside of that weekly trend. The one thing I wanted to make a note of, well, actually two things when it comes to this momentum oscillator. Number one, there's still around 6 days left of this weekly. We need to get a really strong weekly close this week for this momentum to continue to upside and really close above this trend line. But the other thing I noticed right as I was about to record was, you see this moving average on the RSI? We really want to see Bitcoin close above that area as well. It's not just this lower high trend line in yellow that we've plotted. We want to see Bitcoin break the moving average trend, right? And start closing above that area. And notice, even in this last big breakout out of that yellow trend line, Bitcoin was simultaneously breaking above and seeing support above the moving average line on the RSI. And then you go back here, 2023, similar story, breaking above both trend lines. So it is very key to see Bitcoin breaking above that moving average line that you see there, as well as this yellow trend line. So this is something we need to pay attention to. But with that being said, we first start with the next 6 days. Let's see how this week goes for Bitcoin. But then going to the weekly price chart, ultimately, this is what I'm looking for. Break those trend lines, right? And we're going to get a sense on the daily of what the multi-month price trend line looks like that Bitcoin right now is testing and why to be careful in the short term. But break those RSI trends that we just looked at, the moving average trend as well. And then on the weekly chart, Bitcoin closing multiple candles above $92,000. That is so big. And so the reason why is it's making the move to the upside. So flipping the RSI is really what would probably be happening. Bitcoin closing a weekly, maybe 2 weekly candles above the 20-week moving average, because as we zoom out, a lot of people are kind of like, man, this is not good. We are kind of like in this environment. We've fallen below the 20-week moving average, and we're kind of below it right now. We're about to enter a bear market. And you can see last bear market, there was rejection. There was no, strong close above the 20-week moving average. So if we get a move above the 20-week moving average and actually see a couple green candles and closing above $92,000, that will completely discount and kind of get rid of this thought that we're entering this bear market. And there are macro indicators that I've just mentioned in previous videos where I don't think we're there. One of them being quantitative tightening was just basically getting ready to begin, right, for quite some time. Multi-year quantitative tightening. This led into the bear market, not to mention everything else that was bearish going on there. Right now, we're coming up on a season for monetary cycles where quantitative tightening is going to start tapering, start ending, right? So that's the season we're coming up on now. Completely different in terms of monetary cycles. But we want to watch from just a charting perspective, Bitcoin get above that 20-week moving average. It's around $92,000. On the daily, this is where it could start. So to give you an idea, that $92,000 area is right around here. We want to see Bitcoin break above this area, start closing above that area. On the short term, you can see this multi-month downtrend for Bitcoin from the swing high in January. We're just testing it. We're trying to flip. Bitcoin's trying to flip it all around. I want to put some caution out there because you can just see, as I zoom in on this chart, even at this blue line, the 50-day moving average, Bitcoin right now is testing it. Even this wick to the upside, and just above at 87,000 is a 200-day moving average. So we have a 50-day moving average, a 200-day moving average. Bitcoin is in that resistance area right now. And we're gonna get a sense of, on the altcoin chart, and I can overlay it here as well on the Bitcoin chart. We could see, if we're looking at M2 global money supply on this chart, you can see it can be choppy. If it's going to really follow that path before trending up, Bitcoin can see continued resistance on the short term. And I talked about this in a recent video. We need to be careful of that. But getting rid of that, what could that look like? Well, it could look like resistance right now, 200-day, 50-day, doesn't break, right? Maybe we go a little higher, but we're coming back down. Maybe we test 87. And then we're coming back down. We're testing the 20-day, because at this moment, we need to see if Bitcoin can start flipping the 20-day to the upside. That would start by seeing support above the 20-day. So $82,000 support, can it hold? There's absolutely no guarantee that it does. And so if that doesn't happen, if we don't see support, swing low to swing high. Let's just say we've already seen our swing high. Next support, if crypto is going to get choppy once more, is a 786 higher low, 78,000 to around $76,000. Notice right in there is that red line. That's the multi-year neckline of the inverse head and shoulders throwback that we've had. So hobbling around that area, we've already kind of anticipated the throwback. Hobbling around that area would be normal. So that's to the downside. To the upside, if you want that explosive move, we can anticipate that as well. That is a move to the 200-day moving average, 87,000. We start closing a daily candle above that area, then things are getting exciting on the weekly, because remember, it's that $92,000 area that is so crucial for Bitcoin, not only from a macro multi-cycle perspective, but this indicator actually having this start closing very bullish. So let's see, let's anticipate all sides. There's a lot going on. Just in terms of tariffs, in terms of everything, all the news headlines. This can get very volatile, and I think we just need to be prepared for every scenario. But we have our targets to the upside. That first $87,000 resistance, let's see if Bitcoin can make a move to it and break above it. Then we can really start talking some bullish things. And if not, support to the downside, 20-day moving average around 82 to 83,000. And then if things get kind of really choppy to the downside, the higher low, Fibonacci, 78 to 76,000 for support. Going over an altcoin chart. I have in the thumbnail, there's no way. Because it's just, let me break this down for you. There's been so much chatter about M2 global money supply and how crypto has followed this trend. And you really chart it, and we did in a previous video, and it really is. I mean, you see in yellow, just really global liquidity increasing, crypto pumps, right? So notice where we are right now. And I want to break down this time frame, because this really is something that we should at least pay attention to, but be careful. I have 23 days. Why is that? I'm looking at historically and most previously, when this yellow line starts trending up, there's kind of been this little gap, right? So let me explain this. Basically, what I'm looking at is kind of an anchor point on this chart. And that is, if you look at the price of altcoin charts, right? This green breakout above the 20-day moving average, that, and then the time frame of that happening with this little uptrend of the yellow line. That's global M2 money supply starting to increase. 22-day gap, right? That's what that is. Now, if we're going back even further, and my computer froze for a second, but if we go back further, and then we kind of go to the last time, right before that time, check out what's happening. There's the 20-day moving average break. And notice how altcoins actually were kind of like making that move before M2 money supply. But either way, around 26 days then. And then we can even take this back further, and you can see very close, like close proximity to the two things happening. M2 making a move to upside, altcoins making a move to upside, 5 days, right? So this is going back to 2023. But you can just see each time there's kind of this gap. Now, here we are, and you can see this is a M2 global money supply liquidity index of like, what is it? It's a 108-day just leading indicator, right? Because that is kind of the data that most people are using right now. It's been very kind of reliable in terms of crypto following the trajectory of M2 money supply. Now, with that being said, you can see we're testing the 20-day moving average, and we're around 23 days from this global M2 money supply to the upside. And this is something we've talked about. I just did it in a recent video. Breakout in May type of deal. That a lot of people have their eye on that. But with that being said, the two things to keep an eye on would be not only when that happens, right? May, potentially, but also this 20-day moving average. If we see altcoin charts start making a very powerful move above that area, it could happen, as we just saw historically, it could happen right now, or it could happen closer to May. But this is probably the best area to watch on these altcoin charts. An explosive move above the 20. With that being said, it's also just a great area to have. Let me remove this indicator. It's just also a great area to have as kind of a caution area. You can see resistance right here. And we can also make a note, if we bring up the M2 supply, check it out. Again, it could be choppy. If it's going to be choppy, let's continue to anticipate resistance here, and maybe we need to come back down. Altcoins are dipping again. People are getting frustrated again on the very short term. But just like Bitcoin, we have on all of these charts, we can kind of chart a Fibonacci retracement swing low to swing high resistance and kind of see, man, altcoin charts on this chart alone, at least, this is excluding Bitcoin from where we are right now, we might see a 7 to 10% dip to a higher low support. That needs to be anticipated. So all in all, everybody, you can see how we are in kind of a very bullish environment, but we also might be in a short-term just waiting period for these charts to actually make a really nice explosive move. And I think for me, this is a good way to mentally prepare and anticipate obviously upside that we want to see, but also choppiness and downside. And mentally being prepared for that is important for me so that when these things happen, I can just be like, you know what? I understand why it's happening. It makes sense. Let's wait for those bull confirmations. And that's what I'll be doing. So these are my thoughts today. I appreciate you cruising through. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, turn notifications on. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.